Can Tennessee win a national championship with Josh Heupel running the show? It's something that we're going to take a look at today, break down the schedule for this year, the personnel for this year, and look forward to what Josh Heupel can bring to this program and if he can or can't give them a national championship. Now, when we look at short term, I think you have to look at what the schedule presents this year because this year is a much more challenging schedule, really, than you look at last year. And I think that the non-conference play is going to be a little bit easier, maybe because you get a Virginia team that's not as good as they used to be. Austin P and UTSA and UConn as well. That's a pretty easy. Now UTSA is a pretty stingy team. That's a team that could sneak up at people, but you're not getting as difficult of a challenge in the non-conference. Now, when you look at what they have in the conference play, that's where things get interesting because they travel to Florida. That's going to be a tough one. South Carolina and Texas A&M in back-to-back games are tough, and then to follow that up with trips to Alabama and Kentucky, extremely difficult, especially because you look at what happened with the Alabama game last year. Obviously, Tennessee won, and that's really good. I think that's a good sign for where things are going, but it's going to be tough to beat them 2 years in a row. Nick Saban definitely knows what happened last year. They're already making adjustments, most likely. Now, Tennessee is going to make their own adjustments as well. That's where I think we get a better idea. The Florida game really is where it starts. That's where it starts. We're going to find out if this team is, in fact, taking a step forward in the right direction because the team they're chasing is Georgia, and they have to find a way to separate themselves from teams like Florida and teams like South Carolina. You have to find a way to grow and, like I said, separate yourselves from those other teams. Now, Georgia is always going to be, as long as there's divisions in the SEC, is going to be the team that they have to beat. You just have to beat those teams, and you have to beat a team like Georgia if you want to win and get into the college football playoff. Now, there is a way to get in if you don't beat Georgia. If Georgia wins the division, which right now it seems like no one's going to be challenging them in the East, not even Tennessee. But this is a program that is doing really well so far under Josh Heupel, and the schedule could mean that we're looking at a team that will compete with Georgia maybe in the near future. So you're going to have to beat Georgia either way. And then when you do, I think that the part that we talk about all the time with the SEC is the level of difficulty. Because when you look at the East first, you teams like Georgia that are going to be tough to beat. And then if you do manage to beat them, which obviously last year Tennessee did not, and you're looking at a more difficult game sometimes, depending on the year, in the SEC West champion. Now it's been Alabama as of recent years. LSU was in it last year. That's a really tough schedule, no matter how good you are. And that's really challenging for a team like Tennessee, for a team that is on the rise, but still has a little bit of a ways to go. You need to be that complete team. You need to find a way. And with the schedule that Tennessee is going to have, regardless of their West crossover games, it's going to be tough to win the East. And then your reward for winning the East is playing a really tough team from the West. Now, this year specifically, you look at the talent returning. Offensively, I'm really excited. I think that the Nico Milton debate of who's going to win the quarterback job is really interesting. To me, Joe Milton should be the starter with how he performed last year and the experience that he has. If you want to win a SEC title or if you want to compete for a national title, you need a guy that has experience. I just don't believe that freshmen can come in and absolutely dominate the game no matter how good they are. They're just not going to lead you to where you want to go here, especially in the ICC, unless they're a generational talent. Now, I don't think that Nico is that, and nor do I think that Joe Milton is that, but Joe Milton has experience, and that's going to be huge for them. Replacing a guy like Hendon Hooker won't be easy, and the offense that they run requires a player with good talent. And Joe Milton obviously has a cannon for an arm, but I will also believe that he has made steps in terms of touch, in terms of his accuracy. And you look at the talent he has returning, the backfield's loaded with Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. When the wide receivers come into play, yes, you lose Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, but you get Brew McCoy back. I think Brew McCoy is set for a big year. Ramel Keaton showed flashes at times, averaged 18.1 yards per catch last year. Squirrel White is another guy to keep an eye on, 16 yards per catch. This is a talented group. And you also, one other guy to add in is Oregon transfer Dante Thornton. this is an offense that is going to be good. This is still an offense that's going to put up points in a hurry. Josh Heupel's system is meant to score points, and that's really exciting if you're a Tennessee fan. But when you look at then the defensive side of the ball, this is always going to be a Josh Heupel concern. It's always going to be when you look back even to the UCF days. What did UCF do really well? They've scored a lot of points. And I would say the defense wasn't bad, but I wouldn't say that it was a factor in winning a lot of UCF games. It's the same thing with Tennessee. We saw that last year, even in the Alabama game. It was a 52-49 game. Now, you have to give credit to both teams and their offenses, but you have to find a way to be opportunistic. You have to find a way to turn the ball over to your offense. When you have as good of an offense as you'll have with Josh Heupel, your defense is going to be tired. Your defense is going to get a lot of the blame. But if you can turn the ball over one or two times, then you shift momentum and you get the ball back to your offense that can put up more points. And again, nowadays, this is a sport that is going to be tough to produce stops. Just with the athletes are getting better, there's more speed on the field, and that's really tough to stop. But when you look at what Tennessee can do, they are one of those teams that can put up points in a hurry. And it takes, I don't want to say it doesn't take a lot because that seems like you're understating, but this is a team that doesn't need to do a lot to give their offense more chances. Now, when you look at the talent returning on the defense, there's some really exciting players. I think this is going to be a solid group. They also added some players in the transfer portal as well. This is going to be a group that can be opportunistic. This is a group that can be a solid unit. Now, the schedule is pretty daunting when you have Alabama and Georgia on the schedule at the same time. That's always going to be difficult. But if you have the right unit and this offense doesn't take a step back, that's really good if you're a Tennessee fan. Now, the last thing that we have to talk about is what does this look like long term for Tennessee? What does Josh Heupel bring to this program? And I think you're going to get really exciting football. You really are. Josh Heupel has done very well at UCF and Tennessee to at least show that he can produce really exciting products. You've seen UCF compete and win AAC championships. Now you haven't seen Tennessee do that yet. The concerns with Heupel was the recruiting at UCF. Now, with NIL, things are a little bit different, so the game has changed. We will see how long term he does because, you give Nico $8 million, then you're going to get him to commit to whatever program is going to give him a lot of money with that. But is that what Josh Heupel is going to rely on? Is he going to rely on NIL? Obviously, every coach is embracing it, but do you have more tricks up your sleeve than just NIL? Do you have the ability to get to talent? Because if you're going to compete with the Alabamas and the Georgias, you can't just rely on an explosive offense. You have to have the talent that's going to be able to dominate and win big games. That includes, getting 4 and 5 star recruits. You're going to need those players to step up, and you're going to need those players on campus in order to take that next step. Now, to me, Josh Heupel has not shown that he can take that next step yet. I'm not saying that he can't, he just hasn't shown it. And if he is able to take that step, Tennessee is going to be really fun to watch and get back to the glory days. But for now, you're going to get a really exciting offense. I think that there's a lot of good with Josh Heupel and what he brings to the table. The world of college football has changed so much too that you have to give him the benefit of doubt to be able to adapt to the times and just see how that plays out. Now, with his history, you have to keep that in mind too. You have to take that into account when you're talking about Josh Heupel in Tennessee. Now, if he's able to figure things out with this new era of recruiting, then Tennessee is in good hands. I think that they're going in the right direction. There's just some things we have to see from both the coaching staff and with this program in order to put them in national contention. This is a team that is as close as it's been since those glory days where they're competing for national championships. It's just going to be tough to take that next step, not only because of what they have on their roster, but the teams that they must face in order to achieve those goals.